Previously on Animorphs.
Bridget Miller's looking good. He shoots a three, and it's good. Later, he gets the rebound, passes it to the man, shoots it, and boom goes the dynamite.
So Jake wanders around the still way too dark Yeerk pool for a while before finding the cell holding Tom. Tom taunts some controllers for a bit when...
Who said that?
We're here, Tom.
Anne?
It's not worth it, Tom.
Oh my god, Anne? The Yeerks got Anne? Those sick bastards! Wait, who the fuck is Anne? Who is this person? She just pops out of nowhere, so Tom has someone to give a don't give up hope speech. We've never seen her before, we'll never see her again, and we have no idea what her relationship is with Tom. It's not a good sign when you start off an episode, the season finale, with a filler scene. And Tom's been in that cell for like 20 minutes now. How did he not notice Anne before then? Tom gets reinfested and heads up to signal... Wow, this school can't even afford to mount their scoreboard to the wall. Anyway, it's time for the Yeerks to spring their trap. Chapman announces that there's been a sudden tornado warning, and everyone is going to have to head for the shelter underneath the school. As a plan to scoop up a bunch of new hosts at once, it's not awful. But remember that this whole thing is supposed to be a trap for Andalites, so the Yeerks are still assuming the Andalite bandits give a fuck about district finals. And if they were there, there's nothing stopping them from morphing and attacking or running away, because the morphing detectors are still turned off. Outside, Rachel finds Tobias in his new human morph. He explains that his default form is still Hawk, and if he stayed more than 2 hours as human, he'd be stuck with no morphing powers. The Elfangor hologram said as much, but why is the disc Nothlit curing powers one use only? Logically, you should be able to get stuck as human, touch it again, and regain your morphing powers with a Hawk morph still attached. What is this thing exactly, and what does it do? Oh, Chapman goes to retrieve the disc, only to discover it's gone. Dumbass. Jake remorphs Lizard. Wow, look at that awesome lizard vision. I can totally see why you keep morphing these things. Jake follows Tom around for a little while, but for once the Yeerks manage to do something right. Tom realizes he's being followed. He leads Jake into an empty room and proceeds to lock the door on him.
I knew you'd be here. Just as I expected. So nice of you to come and help us unlock the disc, you pathetic Andalite! What delusions of grandeur to think for a second that you can defeat us! We've overtaken more worlds than you can count.
Yeah, so many worlds, which is why you see so many alien controllers walking around. Tobias leads Rachel around the school to an alternate entrance to the Yeerk pool. It turns out that he's been following controllers off camera and mapping out different entrances to the Yeerk pool, which is good. Rachel says they'd be caught pretty quickly inside, despite the fact that this entrance has no security around it whatsoever. Tobias then gets an idea.
Touch the disc.
It's warm. What's happening?
Well, I haven't figured it all out yet, but I think it's working. And we can walk in there like we own the place.
What do you mean?
I need you to become a controller.
What?
You can do it now. The DNA pattern of a Yeerk was on the disc.
The fuckity fuck? Oh, there are so many things wrong with this. First off, how does Tobias know there's Yeerk DNA on the disc? The Elfangor hologram didn't tell him, and there's been no implication that Tobias gained knowledge of the disc's function through touch, so how the hell does he know? And how can Rachel acquire it if she doesn't know Yeerk DNA is on there? In both the books and the TV show, acquiring a morph is an active action. It is not something you can do passively. It is not something you can do accidentally. You have to know what you are acquiring and acquire it on purpose. Otherwise, all the Animorphs would have the DNA of every living thing they've ever brushed up against, every person they've shaken hands with and given high fives, every dog and cat they've petted, every bug that ends up on their skin. But it doesn't work that way. Finally, why is there even Yeerk DNA on this thing? How is it integrated with the disc? Is it actually made of dead Yeerks? Wouldn't the Yeerks have noticed this when they were examining the disc in Yeerk labs? What exactly is the disc, and why did Elfangor have it? Alright, Elfangor, it's war, so we'll need to get your ship properly outfitted. What do you need to take with you? Well, first, I think I need to take a morphing cube with me. Pardon me? You know, just in case. Well, all right, you know best. Anything else? Yes, I have this disc thing. Oh, no, I don't have that on the equipment log. What does it do? It's a one-time only holographic emitter that is specifically calibrated to respond to the touch of my human son that you don't know about at some random point. Also, it can give morphing powers to Nothlits and give them access to their original bodies. Wait, you have the cure for Nothlitism and you didn't tell anyone? Well, it's also one use only. That's the problem when you attach Yeerk DNA to it. What? Why is there Yeerk DNA on the disc? Well, in case you ever need to acquire a Yeerk without knowing it, silly. Why do you need this? Because I'm going to land on planet Earth, and I just know that out of the billions of people on that planet, I'm going to land directly in front of my son, who will no doubt get stuck in a morph and need to get fixed, and will probably need a morph Yeerk in order to get into the Yeerk pool. What? That makes no sense. Who designed this thing? Well, that lady over there. Oh, it's nothing. Just a little rainy day project. This is not to say that the idea of one of the Animorphs acquiring a Yeerk and going inside the head of one of the others is a bad idea. And since this episode came out a few months before the books did this, it gets credit for originality. I'm just sure there was a more logical way for Rachel to acquire a Yeerk. She could have done it when they found the miniature Yeerk pool in the spa in episode 9, or when the Yeerks lay dying in episode 10, or maybe even Crazy Fran's preserved Yeerk back in episode 13. But I think the best option would have been when Rachel was thrown into the Yeerk pool back in episode 7, because then you could say that Rachel acquired a Yeerk off camera and have it revealed here, make it a big shock, and pretend you had this plan this entire time. It'd make more sense than giving Elfangor's disc weird-ass powers. So Tobias sneaks in with Rachel in his head and manages to bluff his way past some controllers. Jake demorphs because he has no idea when that door will be open, so he wants to be as identifiable as possible. Tobias and Rachel find where he's being held and communicate with him through ThoughtSpeak, but because Jake can't put 2 and 2 together, he decides to try screaming through the door instead of remorphing something and using ThoughtSpeak himself. Screaming would put him at risk of his true identity being discovered by Yeerks if it wasn't for the soundproof doors, so no one can hear him anyway. So yes, this was a really bad idea, no matter which way you cut it. Meanwhile, students are getting shuffled into the Yeerk pool with very little problem, not even a cursory, "Well, this doesn't look like any tornado shelter I've seen. Why does it have a hot tub?" The Yeerks start taking the students one by one to a special room, while Cassie, Marco, and Axe spot Tobias interacting with other Yeerks as if he was a controller. Marco points out that if Tobias is a controller, then the Yeerks know everything. Well, sure, they might question why the Yeerks didn't immediately scoop the Animorphs up if they knew, but even the Animorphs know that the anti-TV Yeerks are crap and will probably wait half an hour before making their move. Tom contacts Visitor 3 to give him the good news, but it's at this point that he realizes he no longer has the Dandelight disc. Still, Visitor 3 should be more than happy when he learns that.
I've captured an Andalite. He's trapped.
Have you unlocked the disc?
Or perhaps not. I thought the whole point of this plan was to capture Andalites. I'm sure we can put off the disc for tomorrow. Why are they acting like solving this disc problem is life or death? Tom tries to sweeten the pot by inviting Visitor 3 down to see the captured Andalite infested personally, and...
I'm more interested in the unlocking of the disc!
Why? I know you've been puzzling over the disc for months now, but why the fuck is it so urgent? Why is it so important? How is it a bigger priority than the Andalite bandit that has just been captured? It'll only work in the presence of a member of Elfangor's family, so it might be secret Andalite war files. Or it might be family photos. You guys have no fucking clue, so get your head out of your ass and live in the now. Marco, still thinking Tobias is a controller, decides the best thing to do is to confront him. Tobias and Rachel reveal what's going on, but Cassie ends up getting scooped up by a controller to be infested. Tom and a bunch of controllers get ready to manhandle their captured Andalite, but Jake manages to break the light bulb with his belt. Under the cover of darkness, he goes into his smallest morph and...
Should warn you, Andalite. If you choose to sneak out in one of your small, cowardly forms, you will be sucked up immediately.
You're facing an Andalite with a vacuum. Well, it's hokey, but you guys are actually thinking. Instead, Jake wrestles with Tom in the dark. Wait, how did Visitor 3 get there so fast? Either the Yeerks have teleporters, or Visitor 3 was just hanging out in his room on the other end of the pool and wasn't involved in this plan because he was having a pissy fit and would only talk to people through the video phone. And so our season ends with Jake morphing Tom to try and confuse people. How will Jake get out of this one? We'll find out in 11 months.